I didn't break anything. I didn't scream. I didn't ask why. I just stood there staring at the screen and read, line after line, words she never meant for me to see. He called her baby. She called him mine. Just a few words, but enough to kill a man. Not the flesh, but the part of me that still believed. Believed in loyalty. Believed in a woman who once laid her hand on my chest and swore she'd never hurt it. I didn't ask for an explanation, because I knew no reason could make it right. I simply picked up my keys, my wallet, and walked out of the house we once called home. No slamming doors, no final glance, just the sound of my heart pounding in my chest, and a silence so thick it choked me. If you've ever stood in that moment, where everything falls apart, but you can't even cry, comment, I know that feeling. I didn't slam the door, didn't even close it all the way, I just left. Keys in one pocket, wallet in the other, nothing else. The sun was setting, that kind of golden hour light that normally makes everything look softer. But not tonight, not for me. My boots hit the front steps like dead weight. Every step felt like betrayal, mine or hers, I still don't know. I got in the truck, just sat there, hands on the wheel, engine off, staring at the house we made a home. The porch light flicked on behind me. Maybe she was watching. I didn't turn to check. I didn't care. I had nothing left to say. I drove. No destination. No playlist. Just the sound of old tires and a heart breaking in real time. I didn't cry. Not yet. That would come later, when silence turned too loud to bear. And just like that, I became the stranger in my own life. I ended up in a parking lot behind a strip mall. Didn't remember getting there. Didn't care. I checked my phone. No messages. No missed calls. Funny how silence can hurt more than shouting. There was a guy from work. Tommy. Not a friend. Just someone I talked to during lunch breaks. I texted him. You got a couch I can crash on? No explanation. Just those 9 words. He replied, yeah, come over. That was it. He didn't ask questions. Maybe he saw it on my face. Maybe he'd been there too. His apartment smelled like microwaved pizza and laundry detergent. He tossed me a blanket, pointed to the couch, and went back to gaming. I laid down, fully clothed, boots still on. The TV buzzed quietly in the background. Some war movie, explosions, screams. It all felt too familiar. I stared at the ceiling for hours, not thinking, just existing. And for the first time in years, I felt completely invisible. Not in a sad way. In a way that made me wonder, if I disappeared tonight, would she even notice? At 2:13 a.m., I deleted her number. Not out of anger, not to punish her. I just couldn't trust what hearing her voice might do to me. My thumb hovered over the screen for a full minute. That contact photo, her laughing in the snow, cheeks red from the cold. I used to think that smile was mine. Then, one swipe. Gone. It felt like dropping a glass you've been holding too long. It was never yours to keep intact anyway. I placed the phone on the floor, face down, as if turning it away from me could turn off the memories too. Tommy was snoring. The world outside kept spinning. And me? I was just lying there, stripped of every illusion. I wasn't her man. I wasn't anyone's man. I was just some guy. On someone else's couch, trying to unlove a woman who never thought twice about lying to me. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't cry. I just kept asking myself, was any of it ever real? The next morning I was on the road by 6 a.m. Didn't tell work. Didn't tell anyone. I packed the truck with whatever I had in the back seat, a jacket, a toolbox, half a granola bar, and the version of me that still couldn't believe she did it. I just drove. 2 hours. 4. I didn't stop until the city skyline disappeared in my rear view. At one point I realized I hadn't blinked in a while. My eyes were dry, red, but the tears still hadn't come. It's strange how pain can sit so still inside you, quiet, heavy, like a stone in your gut. I crossed a state line and kept going. Somewhere around hour 7, I pulled into a gas station in a town I didn't know the name of. I looked at myself in the mirror above the sink, unshaven, eyes hollow. And I remember thinking, this is the face of a man who gave everything and lost himself. I didn't feel like starting over, but something told me I had no other choice. I found a small town in northern Arizona. Population, maybe 2,000. Gas was cheap, air was dry, and no one knew my name. That was enough. I rented a room above a closed-down bookstore. The walls smelled like old paper and rain-damaged wood, but it was mine. Or at least, it wasn't hers. Next morning, I walked into a local diner, ordered black coffee and eggs I barely touched. The waitress was kind, didn't ask questions, just refilled my cup and gave me space. That same afternoon, I saw a help wanted sign in front of a beat-up house. Construction crew, needed hands, no questions asked. Perfect. I signed up. They handed me gloves, a hammer, and pointed at a porch that needed tearing down. So I did. Nail by nail, plank by plank. I ripped it apart like it had lied to me, and in that first swing of the hammer, something shifted. I wasn't fixing someone else's house. I was tearing down the broken parts of myself. The work was simple. Break, clear, rebuild, just like they told me, just like I needed. Morning started at 6. Dust in the air, wood under my boots, the sharp thud of hammers cutting through silence. No one talked much. No one asked. It was beautiful. Sweat replaced thought. Every swing of the sledgehammer quieted a memory. Every board I pulled loose felt like removing a lie from my own foundation. I didn't listen to music, didn't wear headphones. Just the sound of birds, drills, and men who didn't need to say much to understand each other. And when my arms ached at the end of the day, it felt honest. That kind of pain you earn, not the kind someone hands you by breaking your heart. At lunch, I'd sit on the back of my truck, watching the sky shift, blue to gold, hot to dry. One day, a guy asked me, "You new in town?" I nodded. He didn't ask where I came from. That was the first time I didn't feel like running. It was small things that kept me going. The smell of sawdust in the morning, the sound of boots on gravel, a nod from the old man who ran the hardware store. Nobody knew me here. Nobody cared. And that's exactly what I needed. I started cooking again. Just simple stuff. Eggs, toast, canned soup. The kind of meals you make when you don't expect anyone to join you. But even that felt like something. I bought a used table from a garage sale. 4 chairs. I only needed one, but it felt wrong leaving the other 3 empty. So I left them there, just in case. In case of what? I didn't know. Some nights I'd sit out on the back steps of my building holding a cold beer and looking up at a sky too big to hold pain. There was no breakthrough, no moment of clarity, just breath. One breath at a time, one quiet evening at a time. Until eventually I realized I wasn't waiting for her to call anymore. I couldn't remember the last time I thought about her voice. It just faded. Like a song you played too many times that stopped meaning anything. I didn't delete our photos. They were still there, somewhere on an old drive, packed in a box I hadn't opened. But I stopped looking, stopped chasing pain like it owed me something. Some mornings I'd catch myself smiling at nothing, just the way the coffee smelled, or how the light hit the floor through the blinds. Stupid things, simple things, but they felt real. And when you've been lied to, when someone you trusted burned down the home you built with your bare hands, real becomes everything. There was no anger anymore, not even numbness, just distance, like watching someone else's life from the other side of glass. And maybe that's what healing really is. Not some big cinematic moment, not shouting into the rain, just waking up one day and realizing, she hasn't been in my dreams for weeks. One afternoon, I passed by a mirror at the back of the job site, just a cracked old thing nailed to a shed wall, and for a second, I didn't recognize the man looking back. He wasn't broken, wasn't drowning. He looked tired, sure, but solid, rooted. The beard was thicker. The eyes weren't as soft. There was something else in them now. Not pain, not rage, presence. And I realized, that version of me, the one who begged silently for answers, who waited for her to explain, who clung to memories like lifelines. He was gone, not dead, just finally resting. And I wasn't mourning him anymore. I started walking different, straighter, like I didn't owe the world an apology for surviving her. People talk about healing like it's some destination, but maybe it's more like leaving a room you didn't know you were locked inside. And when I stepped out that day, into the dust, the noise, the sun in my eyes, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't in that dark place anymore. There was this little coffee shop across from the lumberyard. Dusty floors, chipped mugs, country music humming low. I started going there before work, not for the coffee, it was terrible, but for the quiet, and for her. She worked the morning shift. Name tag said, Rachel, hair tied up, smile half there, like she wasn't trying to impress anyone. She never asked much. Just, same as yesterday? I'd nod. She'd pour, no questions, no small talk. But one day, I asked her name, and she smiled like it surprised her. We talked for maybe 5 minutes, nothing deep. Weather, the town, the ugly paint color on the front door. But I walked out of there feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not attraction, not hope, just ease. A reminder that not every woman is a storm. Some are quiet mornings. I wasn't ready, not yet. But for the first time, I didn't feel like running. And that scared me more than I'd like to admit. The next morning I didn't go for coffee, told myself I was running late. Truth was, I was afraid. Afraid that if I walked in and she smiled again, I'd start hoping. And hope is dangerous when you've spent months convincing yourself it's better to feel nothing at all. But on the third day, I caved. Walked in, same table, same mug, same music humming about heartbreak and pickups. Rachel didn't say anything extra, but when she set my cup down, she left a sticky note on the rim. 3 words, handwritten. "You okay today?" I stared at it longer than I should have. Didn't answer. Just nodded once. Took a sip. Swallowed slow. And for a second, I felt something warm. Not the coffee. It was presence, recognition, the quiet kind, the safe kind. And yet, walking out of that shop, every cell in me screamed, "Don't let this become anything." Because what if she leaves too? I kept thinking about that note. Just 3 words, simple, harmless. But they rattled something loose in me. "You okay today?" I didn't know how to answer. Most days I wasn't sure if I was okay, or just numb. It's strange how one gentle thing can feel more dangerous than 1,000 cruel ones. Because cruelty? I knew how to handle that. But kindness? Kindness makes you drop your guard, makes you think maybe this time will be different. And I wasn't sure I could afford to believe that again. There were nights I'd lie awake, not thinking about Rachel, but about the other one. The one who smiled while she lied, who kissed me goodnight with another man's name buried in her inbox. That kind of wound doesn't just leave a scar, it leaves a voice that whispers, "She'll hurt you too." I hated that voice, but part of me still listened. Because when you've been burned once, even candlelight feels like fire. People looked at me and saw a man getting by, working hard, keeping to himself, quiet, reliable. But what they didn't see was the man checking the locks twice at night. Not out of fear of intruders, but fear of letting his past crawl back in. They didn't see how I tensed up when my phone buzzed, how I still hesitated to save new numbers, how I deleted photos before I got attached to the moments, because it wasn't just her betrayal that changed me, it was what came after. The silence, the hollow space she left behind, and how I filled it with self-doubt. Rachel smiled at me again today. Nothing flirty, nothing loaded, just kind, like I deserved kindness. And for a second, I almost let myself believe it. But strong men don't bleed in front of strangers. We learn to walk with the wound, to carry it like a badge or a warning sign. And some days, I can't tell the difference. That Friday, the power went out at the site, so we got off early. And for some reason, my truck turned itself toward the coffee shop. Rachel was closing up, apron off, hair down, same calm energy. She smiled when she saw me. "Didn't think I'd see you this late," she said. I shrugged. "Didn't think I'd show up," I replied. She laughed, quiet and real. It caught me off guard. Then she asked, "You want to help me kill some pie? I hate eating the last slice alone." I almost said no, almost made some excuse. But I didn't. So we sat in that empty shop, sharing apple pie on 2 chipped plates, and talked about everything except what hurt. She told me her husband died 5 years ago. Car accident. Left her with 2 dogs and a quiet house. I didn't say much. But I listened. Really listened. Because for the first time in a long time, someone's pain didn't scare me. It made me feel less alone. And that's when it hit me. Maybe we don't heal alone. We heal beside someone who understands. After that night, I kept thinking about Rachel. Not constantly, not obsessively, just often enough that I noticed the quiet was starting to feel different. Like maybe I wasn't just surviving anymore. Maybe I was starting to return. But every time I caught myself smiling, a voice would rise inside me. Not hers. Mine. The one that whispered, "Don't be stupid. You've seen how this ends." The one that remembered the cold silence, the unread messages, the way betrayal doesn't scream. It just steps over your trust and keeps walking. I hated that voice, but I'd trusted it for so long. It kept me safe. It kept me lonely. So now I was standing between 2 versions of myself. The man who protected his heart like it was made of glass, and the man who wondered if maybe it wasn't anymore. I saw Rachel again today. We didn't talk long, just a nod, a look, a smile held 1 beat too long, and when I walked away, the voice asked, "Do you even know how to love someone without bleeding for it?" Sunday used to be the hardest. Too quiet, too slow, too many empty chairs around the table. But this Sunday was different. The town held a little flea market near the church. Booths with rusty tools, handmade candles, knitted things no one really needs. Rachel was there. She waved when she saw me, like we'd known each other longer than we had. Like it wasn't strange that 2 people with invisible bruises kept showing up in each other's quiet spaces. We walked for a while, didn't talk much. She stopped to pet every dog we passed. I bought a mug that said, "Today is enough." I didn't even drink out of mugs like that, but somehow, it felt right. We didn't plan it, but we ended up sitting on a bench near the edge of the field, watching kids chase bubbles, listening to wind move through cottonwoods. No big moment, no music swell, just peace, shared, unspoken. And for once, I didn't feel like I had to prove I was okay. I just was. The next few weeks were quiet in the best way. Work, coffee, random talks with Rachel about things that didn't cut too deep, books we never finished, roads we wanted to drive, meals we cooked only for ourselves. It was simple, no pressure, no grand gestures. But the simplicity made me nervous, because peace was unfamiliar, and unfamiliar things used to lead me straight to loss. There were nights I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling fan spin slowly above me, and wonder, what if this time I ruin it? What if the damage she did left marks too deep for someone else to trace with grace? I kept waiting for something to go wrong, for Rachel to change, to vanish, to say the wrong thing, and prove the voice inside me right. But she didn't. She just kept showing up, kind, constant, quiet. And one night, brushing sawdust off my boots, I whispered to no one, maybe I'm the one who doesn't know how to stay. One night I caught myself pulling away. Rachel reached for my arm, just a light touch, no weight, and I flinched, not visibly, not rudely, but enough for her to feel it. And she let go, gently, didn't say a word. I drove home feeling like a coward, but not because of her, because of me. Because somehow, even after all this time, I was still bracing for a blow that wasn't coming. Still guarding wounds no one was trying to touch. I sat in the truck, engine off, watching the condensation crawl down the windshield, and I whispered the truth I'd been avoiding. She didn't break me. I've been breaking myself trying to keep from ever being broken again. It hit like cold water. Because blaming her, that was easy. But this was the work. The quiet, heavy work of unlearning fear. And it scared me more than losing her ever did. The next morning I didn't go to work, didn't call in, didn't make excuses. I just stayed still. Poured a cup of coffee, sat on the porch, watched the steam rise and vanish into the cold air, and for the first time in months I didn't feel guilty for stopping. I wasn't avoiding anyone, I wasn't hiding, I was just existing. I walked around town aimlessly, let the sun hit my face, bought a sandwich I didn't really want, just to hear someone ask, for here or to go. I sat on a park bench with that sandwich, watching people I didn't know live lives I wasn't part of. And strangely, I didn't feel left out. I felt present, not chasing, not remembering, just breathing. Rachel texted me around noon. No questions, just, everything okay? I stared at the screen, then typed back slowly, I think so. I didn't run today. And that meant more than she could ever know. That week, I did something I hadn't done in over a year. I bought groceries, real ones, not canned chili and instant coffee. I picked up fruit, bread that didn't come pre-sliced, even a jar of strawberry jam like the one I used to keep for weekend mornings. I didn't think much of it at first, just a chore, just restocking. But standing there in that aisle, holding a box of cereal, I felt something strange. Choice, not survival, not routine, just the quiet decision to feed myself like I mattered. Later that night I cooked, pasta with garlic and olive oil, nothing fancy, but it filled the room with a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. I ate at the table, no phone, no TV, just a plate, a fork, and the sound of being alive. And when I did the dishes, hands in hot water, steam rising into my face, I smiled. Not because I was healed, but because I was here. I started saying yes more, not to big things, not to dinner parties or weekend trips, but to small stuff. A guy at work asked if I wanted to grab a beer after we wrapped up. Usually, I'd say no, say I was tired or had errands, or just nod and walk away. But that day, I said sure. We sat on the tailgate of his truck behind the bar, didn't talk about much, just complained about the heat, about how the new guy didn't know how to measure studs, about nothing really. And it felt normal, not forced, not like pretending, like I was part of something again, even if just for a moment. I didn't stay long, just one beer. Then I drove home with the window down, music low, wind warm against my face. And somewhere between the first stoplight and my front door, I realized I wasn't checking my phone anymore. I wasn't waiting for her name to appear. That part of me had gone quiet. It was a Saturday, late afternoon, the kind where the air smells like sawdust and the sweat on your back starts to dry. I had just finished sanding a stair rail, hands rough, shirt stained, tired in the honest way a man should be tired. I pulled into my driveway, truck rattling, music low, unlocked my front door with a motion I'd done 100 times. And then I heard it, A car pulling up behind me, too close, too slow. I turned, and there she was. Her. The one who left me bleeding on the inside while smiling at someone else in the mirror. She stepped out of the car like she wasn't sure the ground would hold her, eyes wide, hands trembling, hair longer, body smaller, not physically, no, but in presence, in certainty. We stood there in silence, no wind, no sound, just the weight of everything that hadn't been said. She opened her mouth, voice shaky. "Daniel." And in that moment, time didn't stop. But something inside me did. I didn't say anything, just stood there, keys still in my hand, sawdust on my shirt, heart quieter than I expected. She looked tired, not from the drive, from something deeper. Her eyes found mine, but I didn't offer them anything back. Not comfort, not anger, just presence. "I've been trying to find you," she said. "I didn't know where you went. You just disappeared." I almost laughed. Disappeared? She made me invisible before I ever walked out that door. She reached into her bag and pulled out a photo. Us, smiling in some sunlit moment that now felt like it belonged to someone else. "I ruined everything," she whispered, voice cracking like cheap glass. "I know that. I didn't take the photo. Didn't need to." She stepped closer, carefully, like I might shatter if touched. Or maybe she would. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I needed to say it. I'm sorry." I looked at her, at the tears, at the woman I once would have died for. And then I asked, "Why now?" "Why now?" My voice surprised even me, calm, steady, not the voice of a man breaking, but one who already broke and rebuilt. She looked down, wiped her cheek with the sleeve of a sweater I didn't recognize. "The man I left you for, he left me," she said. I nodded once, no judgment, just acknowledgement. He said he never wanted anything serious, that he liked the thrill, not the wait, and when it got real, he vanished. I didn't move, didn't flinch. It wasn't news, it was confirmation. "I thought I wanted more," she said, "but it took losing you to realize you were the more." The way her voice cracked, the way her hands fidgeted, it wasn't performance, it was guilt, real, raw. But guilt's a funny thing, it doesn't rebuild what it broke. She took a shaky breath. "I know I can't undo it, I just needed you to see me, one last time." And for a moment I saw her, not the one from my past, but the version of her left behind by her own mistakes. And still I didn't step forward. She waited for me to say something, anything, but I didn't rush. I just looked at her, really looked. The woman standing in front of me wasn't the ghost I used to chase in my sleep. She wasn't the fire that burned me. She was just a person, tired, haunted by choices she couldn't take back. "You know," I said finally, "I didn't leave because I stopped loving you." Her eyes shot up, wet and wide. "I left because you did." She opened her mouth, maybe to deny it, maybe to cry harder, but I shook my head. "You stopped choosing me." That was louder than any confession could have been. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't bitter, just honest. And in that honesty, I felt something shift, like setting down a weight I didn't realize I'd still been carrying. She stepped back, hands to her mouth, eyes full of the wreckage she caused. But I wasn't standing in it anymore. I had already walked out. She stood there, shaking, one hand still holding that old photo, the other wiping tears that wouldn't stop coming. I could have asked why. I could have demanded details. But I didn't. Not because I didn't want answers, but because I didn't need them anymore. Sometimes, closure doesn't come with explanations. Sometimes it's just a door you close, from your side. "I hope you find peace," I said quietly. "I really do." She looked up, surprised, like kindness was the last thing she expected. "But I'm not the man who forgives like he used to, and you're not the woman I used to fight for." No anger, no drama, just truth. She nodded, slow, like every word carved deeper than blame ever could. Then she turned, walked back to her car, didn't look over her shoulder. I stood in the same spot, watching taillights disappear into dust and dusk. And I didn't chase them, because this time, I wasn't losing anything worth holding on to. I stepped back inside. Same door, same walls, same creak in the floorboard near the kitchen, but everything felt different. Not because the place had changed, but because I had. I leaned against the door, closed my eyes, let the silence wrap around me. No pounding heart, no ache in my chest, just breath, slow, steady. I walked to the counter, poured a glass of water. The light above the sink flickered once, then held steady. I reached into the drawer, the one where I'd kept old letters, photos, things I told myself I'd deal with later. Opened it, sat down, and one by one I threw them away. No rage, no final song playing in the background, just the sound of paper meeting the bottom of a trash bag. I wasn't erasing the past, just choosing not to carry it anymore. And as I tied the bag shut, it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like space. The next morning felt quiet, but not the kind of quiet that screams loneliness. It was a stillness that made space. I made coffee, sat on the porch, watched the neighbor's dog chase leaves like it was chasing time. And for the first time in a long time, my thoughts weren't about her. They weren't about the damage, the loss, or the questions with no answers. They were about now. I thought about work, about Rachel's smile, about the way she laughs like no one's watching, but always notices when I'm quiet too long. I thought about maybe texting her, maybe seeing if she wanted to walk the flea market again. No pressure, no expectations, just presence. I wasn't in love, not yet, maybe not even close, but I was no longer hiding. Not from memories, not from people, not from myself. And when you stop hiding, the world starts to feel like it's yours again. I stared at my phone for maybe 5 minutes, not out of fear, but out of respect. I wanted to make sure the words were honest, not coded in apology, not armored in sarcasm, just true. Hey, if you're free sometime, I'd love to walk that flea market with you again. Simple, direct, no games. I hit send, set the phone down, didn't stare at the screen waiting for the dots to appear. Instead, I stepped outside, let the sun hit my face, breathed in air that didn't taste like regret anymore. When the phone buzzed, I didn't jump, I didn't brace. I smiled before even reading it, because no matter what it said, yes, no, rain check, silence, I was already proud of the version of me that sent it, the version that tried again, that showed up. Healing isn't about finding the perfect person. Sometimes it's just about becoming someone who's no longer afraid to reach out. She said yes, not with excitement, not with emoji hearts or exclamation points. Just, I'd like that. It was the kind of reply that didn't try too hard, that didn't need to. We met at the edge of the market, near the kettle corn stand. She wore jeans, no makeup, hair pulled back like she didn't plan to impress, and somehow she still did. We walked slowly, stopped at a booth selling old vinyl records. She picked up one with a cracked cover and said, "My dad used to play this on Sundays." I asked if she ever danced to it. She smiled. Only in socks. We didn't talk about pasts, didn't mention exes or what-ifs. We talked about music, mornings, what kind of pie deserves a second slice. It wasn't a date, it was a walk. Two people moving forward in the same direction, even if just for an hour. And sometimes that's all healing needs. Someone willing to walk beside you, with no finish line in mind. She told a story about burning toast so bad the smoke alarm went off and her dog refused to come back into the kitchen for 3 days. It wasn't that funny, but the way she told it, animated, hands flying, voice rising at the punchline, I laughed. Not a polite chuckle, not a tired smile, I laughed. The kind of laugh that comes from the gut, that sneaks up on you and knocks the wind out in the best way. She looked at me, eyebrows raised, almost surprised. And I realized I was surprised too. It had been so long since my body made that sound without forcing it, without needing to prove I was okay. I forgot what my laugh even sounded like. We kept walking, didn't talk about it, didn't need to. But inside, I felt something loosen, something old and tight, let go. And just like that, I didn't feel like a man carrying pain anymore. I felt like someone learning how to live again. She reached for a jar of honey at one of the booths, local stuff, dark amber in color, and the sleeve of her sweater slipped back just enough for me to notice a tiny scar on her wrist. I didn't ask. She didn't explain. Some things don't need words. Some stories live quietly beneath the skin. We paid, kept walking. There was a pause in the conversation, not awkward, not heavy, just quiet. Then, without thinking, our hands brushed. She didn't pull away. Neither did I. For a second, we walked like that. Fingers not locked, just near, just close enough to feel. I wasn't analyzing it, wasn't measuring the moment. I just let it be what it was. And in that exact space, between intention and instinct, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Ease, not excitement, not butterflies, just calm. The kind of calm that doesn't ask for more. It just says, "You're safe here." We sat on a bench near the end of the market, same spot as last time. Same breeze moving through the cottonwoods. Rachel pulled out a small paper bag, 2 muffins inside. "Split one?" she asked. I nodded. No big moment, no music cue, just 2 people sharing silence and something sweet. Halfway through, she looked over and said, "You're different than when I first met you." I raised an eyebrow. "How so?" "You're more here now, like you're not somewhere else in your head." I didn't answer right away, because she was right. I had been somewhere else, for a long time, but not today. Today, I wasn't watching the past play out behind my eyes. I wasn't waiting for a ghost to knock on my door. I wasn't shrinking to fit a pain that no longer owned me. I finished the muffin, looked at her, and smiled. Not because I wanted something from her, but because, for the first time, I wasn't hiding anything from myself. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, hands clasped, elbows on knees, room dim, except for the bedside lamp humming in the corner. And I said something out loud I'd never dared to say before. It wasn't all my fault. Not the breakup, not the betrayal, not the silence that followed. I wasn't perfect. I'd shut down, avoided conflict, swallowed too much. But I hadn't deserved to be lied to. I hadn't deserved to be left like that. I think for a long time, I blamed myself just to have a reason. Because blaming me was easier than admitting someone I loved had chosen to hurt me. But now I could hold both truths. I made mistakes. She broke something. And both can be real, without erasing each other. I didn't cry, didn't feel proud, just lighter. I stood up, turned off the lamp, and as darkness settled over the room, I whispered, "You're allowed to move on now." And for once, I believed it. Next morning, I shaved. Nothing dramatic. No slow-motion scene. Just me, in front of the mirror, razor in hand, water running steady. It had been months. The beard had become part of the armor, a way to say, without saying, "I don't care about being seen." But that morning I did. Not for Rachel. Not for anyone watching. Just for me. I trimmed it back, cleaned the lines, washed my face, looked myself in the eye. Still tired. Still weathered. But honest. I put on a clean shirt. Not the usual work flannel. Something simple. Something I hadn't worn since before everything fell apart. And I realized it fit again. Not just on my body, but in my life. I didn't need a new identity. I didn't need to become someone else. I just needed to come back to the man I was, before I let pain tell me who I had to be. Rachel invited me to dinner. Nothing fancy. Just her place. Pasta. A movie that was probably terrible. A few months ago, I would have said no. Not because I didn't want to go, but because I didn't know how to show up without my armor. But this time, I said yes. I brought a bottle of red wine someone once told me was good. She lit a candle, made fun of herself for burning the garlic bread. We ate on the couch, legs tucked under us like teenagers. And for the first time in years, I wasn't watching the door. I wasn't half listening for something to go wrong. We laughed, paused the movie too many times to finish any scene. She leaned her head on my shoulder, and I didn't stiffen. I didn't wonder what came next. I just breathed. Not like a man waiting for the other shoe to drop, but like someone who finally took off his boots and stayed a while. I wasn't testing the water anymore. I was stepping in. The next morning, she was still asleep, hair a little messy, one arm flung across the pillow like she wasn't worried the world might take it away. I got up quietly, made coffee, fed her dog, let the morning in, one small sound at a time. There was no rush, no pretending to slip out unnoticed, no cold air between bodies that once felt close but broke overnight. It was just morning, simple, soft. I sat at the kitchen table with a chipped mug, watching light shift across the hardwood floor. And I felt something strange. Not excitement, not fear, just nothing, but not the empty kind, the calm kind, the kind where you don't have to prove anything, don't have to perform, don't have to brace for pain, you just exist. And it's enough. For the first time in years, I wasn't measuring my heart rate, I was just living in the quiet. I used to think healing came with closure. Some moment when everything clicks, when the hurt makes sense, when the pain packs its bags and walks out of you. But that moment never came. What came instead was this. A Tuesday morning. No storm, no final monologue. Just me, washing dishes in a stranger's sink that no longer felt unfamiliar. A quiet house, a woman humming in the next room. I didn't think about her anymore. The one who left me hollow. Not because I forgot, but because the story stopped echoing. It didn't need a new ending. It didn't need revenge or forgiveness carved into stone. It just didn't need anything. And that was the real peace. Not getting even. Not proving I was okay. Just not needing to prove anything at all. I looked at my reflection in the kitchen window, blurred by sunlight and steam. No more ghosts. And for the first time, I didn't feel like a man healing. I felt like a man whole. This isn't a story about a woman who broke my heart, or a man who had to rebuild from scratch. It's a story about something quieter, harder to name, easier to miss. It's about learning to sit with pain without letting it define you. About learning that love doesn't always leave a scar. Sometimes it just leaves a space. And what you do with that space, that's the story. It's about walking again, even when your legs still shake. It's about laughing without guilt, trusting without guarantees, loving slowly without fear of losing yourself again. I didn't win anything in the end. Didn't get revenge. Didn't get the perfect apology or a perfect second chance. What I got was peace. And honestly, that's enough. If you've ever been the one who stayed too long, who loved too hard, who walked away shaking but still walked, drop a below and say, I made it. So someone else scrolling in silence knows they're not alone.